Today's reading asks the question, what does Christianity have to offer an exciting, modern city? Let's make it personal. What does City Church Chelmsford have to offer to an up and coming city? Athens was one of the most impressive cities in the world, the birthplace of democratic government, the origin of plays and books and philosophies that are still studied in universities around the world, and of architecture that is copied everywhere we look. But the Christian missionary Paul was not impressed with Athens. He was distressed. Look down at verse 16, the first verse of our reading. It says, "While Paul was waiting for them, his friends, in Athens, he was greatly distressed to see that the city was full of idols." Idols were pictures or statues thought to represent gods, supernatural beings with the power to influence daily life. And the Athenians celebrated and gave gifts to these idols, hoping that the gods they represented would repay the favor. They worshipped their gods in the hope of a better life. Now that all sounds a bit silly and primitive, and we chuckle at the idea that Apollo or Zeus or Athena could do anything for us. People today don't worship idols. At least that's what we claim. But is that really true? Do we really live in a world? Are we satisfied with a world where we're born by chance to pass on our genetic material and hopefully experience some pleasant chemical reactions along the way? Are we all looking for something more in life, for meaning, for purpose, love, beauty, truth, value? The Athenians at least recognized that true meaning could only come from something greater than themselves. But our world is convinced that little things we invent, like job titles, bank accounts, homes, looks, can give us all that we need. The actress and producer Sharon Horgan thought that making a successful TV show would give her life. Listen to what she said. She says, "I genuinely thought I would have that feeling of hitting the jackpot. Confetti would come down, I'd punch the air and walk away because my work here was done. But I've never had that feeling, ever. I can't imagine it happening." That's worship. Or recently, an unbelievably successful trader told a courtroom, "I spent 36 years trying to find happiness on a path built on a lie. I made more money than I could have ever imagined. I did all the things society says will give you happiness. And when they didn't, I didn't know where to look." That's worship. Even the atheist, Ricky Gervais, reveals his gods when he says, "As long as there's science, as long as there's freedom somewhere, I think that humanity will be saved." That's worship. The writer David Foster Wallace said, "Everybody worships. The only choice we get is what to worship." Now that was clear in Athens with their idol statues. But in our world that denies the supernatural, worship is harder to see. One author suggested that we could identify our idols, our gods, by completing this sentence: "I will feel happy and my life will have meaning if." How would you answer that? If I have power and influence, if I'm loved and respected, if I look like so-and-so, if I own that, if I obey these rules, if my children do once we recognize it, we can see that our world is full of worshippers, looking for something to give them the life that only God can give. We'll even see it in the church, when professing Christians disobey God or fall out with each other over things that they think are more important than God. Do we see a world full of idols? And if so, how do you react? Do you feel threatened by them, or angry, or indifferent and resigned? My default reaction is intimidation. I'm tempted to believe that the idols of power and money and sex really are the best things in life, and I'm not sure that my God can compete with them. But when Paul looked at Athens, he was distressed. Impressive Athens. But he knew that the amazing idols they built would crumble to the ground, and history has proved him right. Paul looked at a famous city, and he saw people throwing their lives away for myths, and he cared enough to try and point them to the truth. Just look at verse 17. Verse 17 says that Paul reasoned in the synagogue with both Jews and God-fearing Greeks, as well as in the marketplace, day by day, with those who happened to be there. Now scan down to verse 22. Verse 22, Paul stood up in the meeting of the Areopagus and said, "People of Athens, I can see that you are very religious. For as I walked around and looked carefully at your objects of worship, I even found an altar with this inscription, 'To an unknown God.' So you are ignorant of the very thing you worship. And this is what I'm going to proclaim to you." Paul knew that he had something to offer this impressive city, not because he was cleverer and had found the truth, but because the truth had found him. Jesus Christ, risen from the dead, came to Paul and showed him the way to true life. So how do you feel when you look at a world lost in idols? Do you see people worshipping myths, things that will crumble to the ground faster than the stone of Athens? Last year, my heart broke as I read an article written by a popular Essex primary school teacher. Listen to what she said to people who might be jealous of her. She said, "I'm now approaching 40 and quite honestly, nearly burnt out. Can I still maintain the popular teacher role for much longer? Honestly, I don't know any other way to be. I can't help to question whether the career that has given me so much is also responsible for taking so much more away. Was it all worth it? I've spent 10 years working with endless passion and enthusiasm, and teachers with this commitment, maybe popular members of staff, liked and adored by children and parents. But learn from them. Don't sigh or smirk or suppress their creativity, because sometimes that's all they have." This woman has given her whole working life to her job, and she wonders if she has anything valuable to show for it. It's tragic. We live in a world lost in idolatry, and Jesus Christ has given us the truth. Jesus hasn't crumbled into the dirt like the idols of Athens. His tomb is empty. He's alive. And he doesn't drive us into the ground and disappoint us like the idols of today. He died for us to give us his life, to put his Spirit in us. If we've found that life in Jesus, then we'll want to introduce him to our lost world. Now, Paul's experience in Athens shows that not everyone will listen. Our world is not just lost people looking for the truth. It's rebels clinging to control, keeping God at arm's length. But there were some willing to listen to Paul, and some will listen to us. So let's pray for our neighbors and help them see their worship. We could pay attention to what excites and depresses them. We can ask them what they're hoping to get out of life, or their job, or that relationship. And let's especially look out for those who are questioning their idols. The people I've quoted who found the things they dreamed for and are still empty, who know they're searching for an unknown God. Then we can share the life that we've found in Jesus. We can show it to them in our church family. You see, Paul knew that delivering speeches in the Areopagus wasn't enough. And the end of this chapter, you can read it later, describes him planting a church. And that is what we have to offer to Chelmsford. True life, found in Jesus Christ, revealed in a community of people filled with his Spirit. That is like a roadmap for the lost, a hospital for the sick, food for the hungry, water for the thirsty. That is true life. Our final song is a prayer that God would save us completely from the idols that we worship. It thanks him for revealing himself to us in Jesus, and it asks God that he would continue to make himself known to our world through us. Let's pray as we sing our final song.